Hello, Star Citizens, and welcome to another Star Citizen Nightly. Now, this one might be a little bit longer than you might think because I'm actually going to make up for the fact that I missed like 4 or 5 of these when my computer was acting all crazy. So, we're hopping right into it this time. So we're going to start with this Foundation Festival thing. I did talk about Foundation Festival before my computer did a loop-de-loop on a bad roller coaster. But now I just wanted to go in and show you that you only have to post the video once in the community hub. And it says, be sure to include the handles of the collaborators in the community hub post. So for people who were wondering about that, and once again, the prizes are the Valkyrie, the Razor, and the Cutter, and you get that plus with LTI plus a Foundation Festival paint, and you get one of those per collaborator and contributor. So each person gets one of those. So that's really cool. To this week in Star Citizen, the biggest thing to come out of this is that after CitizenCon this year, there's going to be this event called Atmosphere from Atmo Esports, and there's going to be a CIG panel that's going to talk at that, or at least be at that. So that's going to be pretty cool for folks that are going to CitizenCon. You'll be able to go in there. I'm not 100% sure when my flight leaves, but if my flight does not leave before that time, I will definitely go check that out. I'm pretty sure my flight doesn't leave Sunday. I think I leave to come back Monday, so we'll see. All right. That's the 20th of October. That's 4 p.m. to midnight, even though up here it says 3 p.m. to 11. Maybe they're letting people in at 3, but it doesn't start till 4. So more about this week in Star Citizen. So obviously, we got the free fly that's going on right now for Foundation Festival, and it goes all the way to the 19th, which is this Friday. There will not be a Star Citizen live this week, but we are going to get Inside Star Citizen, and they're going to talk about jump points. They're going to release the cookbook with all those Xenotreat things that everybody submitted on Wednesday, so that'll be cool too. So I'm starting to notice that there's not a lot of news coming out of CIG right now, so I'm hoping that because there's not a lot of news that by Friday, because of that lack of news, that means they're hard at work and they're going to get us wave 1 on this PTU. So, maybe certain things could stay in Evocati, but I think we should have a wave 1 of 3.24 by this Friday, because if we don't, I'm going to be like, well, what's going on? What's going on? Because the last few Star Citizen lives were, and they were recorded, and then there was like not that much information, and there was like a repeat of information in the Inside Star Citizen. So I'm wondering what's going on. Like, I hope that it just means the team has their head down and they're cooking, because I think we should definitely have PTU by this Friday. You've had plenty of time. We're 7 months in to features that were promised for 3.23. So yeah, let's get to it. CIG. All right. Then we have this here. So this is actually talking about the maize prices. They've been cut. The lawful boxes are 10K and the unlawful ones are 11.5K with no bonus. And they're asking if that was intentional or if it was a mistake. This person says, we heard the feedback about effort versus reward. I believe that's what EVR stands for Jumptown. As the larger the group, the smaller the final rewards. By joining the group, the difficulty should be significantly lower, but some adjustments could be made to better support group content. We are working on improvements for this area of the game. That's a nothing burger. You didn't really say anything. You just answered. You might as well have just not answered in that case. I am super against Jumptown prices being lower at all, because the idea is that it's supposed to be difficult to get this stuff from Jumptown. So it should be very high. At the very least, it should be very high during the event. And this definitely was cut while that event was going down. So that's a little weird to me that they cut. They wanted us to focus on it and then uh, made the prices less, because that's going to make people focus on it less because they're going to see that it's not worth it. So yeah, uh, that's a weird choice to me, but that's what happened. And apparently they're working on it, and that's what we're getting. Um, this one is about the Alpha UEC seller spam issues. So basically, if you want, just make sure you're reporting them. That's pretty much all this says. If you see an Alpha UEC spammer, please report them to one of the community managers. But apparently they are tracking it, and there's some bots that are pretty hard to get out of there. So that's why you're still seeing it. It's easy enough to avoid, so I'm not too worried about it. Another thing, the next Bar Citizen is Saturday, July 20th at the Nighthawk Brewery and Pizza in Arlington, Virginia. So it's like Washington, D.C. Bar Citizen. I'm close enough to where that would be a very long drive for me. That was actually a weird way to say that. I'm close enough to where that would be a very long drive for me. No, I am close enough to where that wouldn't be a very long drive for me. So I don't know. I don't know if I want my first one to be in a random city. I think I'd rather it be closer to home. So I'll see if there's one closer to home, because I have never been to a Bar Citizen, so I would like mine to be closer. So here's looking to Toronto. The next one that they do in Toronto, I'll try to make that one. It looks like this one's going to be Cologne, this one's Seattle, this one's San Diego, and that one's in Portugal. I like that. Okay. But hopefully they do one in Toronto, or I don't know. Yeah, let's just hope for Toronto. That's good enough. If you do one in Michigan, that area, Chicago even, I might go to those, but we'll see. Anyway, moving on from the Bar Citizens. Oh, I also want one of these cube things. That's not the only reason I'm going, but it's very high on the list. So this is a few days old. This is from July 11th, and I have another one from July 12th. So just as I normally do with these, I see if they have other stuff that's popped from not ready to testing feedback, and that has not happened. So really what we do is you can pause and look at the known issues. You can pause and look at the bug fixes. But really I just come and look at the features and gameplay. So ASOP and Elevator UI polish, which is good because that means people were having some trouble and now they're fixing it. So the font size and the style set up for personalized text fields in Elevator and ASOP panels to adjust how text displays on the UIs. That's good. Atmospheric flight tuning. So a lot of flight updates are happening. So these update tunes are to atmospheric flight, speed, and yaw capabilities of ships. And I guess there's going to be a lot of different... I think this might be the low-key reason why this became 3.24. I think they were like, let's change master modes a lot more for atmospheric flight. And maybe they're adjusting those in general to like make them more realistic, because there are certain ships that don't make sense why they're so bad in atmosphere. So maybe there's like this big huge master modes update coming that we don't know about, that's in the background, because I've seen atmospheric flight tuning and ship yaw and pitch changes over the past few Evocati notes, so we'll see. Let's see what else. Oh, so updated cargo loading time to be based on box size instead of per SCU. So I like that. It shouldn't be like, oh, it costs this amount of time just in general. It should be like, well, obviously it takes longer to load a 32 SCU box or 64 SCU. Do they have 64 SCU? I don't recall having a 64 SCU box. I think it was 32. I don't recall. I've never used one if they do have them, but 32 SCU. It should take longer to load than an 8 SCU or 16 SCU, right? Updated description text for intro cargo hauling missions to specify that players need a ship that can hold at least 6 SCU of cargo. So that's kind of letting you know, like, the smallest I think that these containers are going to be is probably 4 or 6. I don't know if they have 6 SCU boxes. I don't remember seeing the 6 SCU box. I think it was 4 then 8. But I really don't pay enough attention to the cargo boxes. I really should pay more attention to that. But yeah. So yeah, and then it says again, made further master modes atmospheric flight tunings. So I really think that master modes, at the very least, master modes in atmosphere is going to get a massive change when it comes to 3.24. Hopefully it just means leaving atmosphere faster, entering atmosphere faster, because it's fun the first like 400 times, but then at 401 you're like, okay, I just need to like hurry up. So I want it to be realistic, but I think it's a little too still, yeah, it's still too realistic. We could bring it back a little bit and it would still be fun. Yeah, so that's pretty much it for the patch note stuff. And then lastly, so this is a whole thread about FPS. So I'm gonna read it because this is kind of like a lot, and kind of what I want to do here is just kind of keep you from having to read it yourself. But I want to go through it because there's a lot of notes from Zach Priest at CIG. Looks like he's got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 responses in here. It's very active. As a lover of FPS games, and from what I have read in other threads of yours, Zach Priest, you also like competitive FPS games. I would like to ask a few things about it. About the crosshair, the dynamic one is very good, but when it comes down to it, as you well know, a dynamic crosshair for quick aiming does not work well. The fact that it moves down, the fact that it moves does not allow you to aim at the body quickly and then use the ADS, which is aim down sight. It ends up disorienting you. Furthermore, shooting from the hip is unfeasible, so it doesn't matter to use a dynamic crosshair and see where the gun is pointing if it's not going to hit any bullets. Or I think they meant to say targets there. Regarding sensitivities, and this is what worries me the most, the sensitivity continues to vary too much when changing sights. Times 2 to times 4, for example, when a high field of view, with a high field of vision, I think is what that says. And as you well know, that destroys your muscle memory when you are constantly varying the sensitivity. I appreciate the effort, and so on and so forth. Then Zach Priest replied, regarding the crosshair, the weapon fires from the barrel, so the crosshair is a representation of where those shots will land, meaning when you look around, the weapon has to catch up. It's a very minor amount of time, but it's important to gameplay feel. Most games don't opt to fire from the barrel because of inconsistencies such as this, but that isn't the game that Star Citizen is. Gluing the weapon's position just feels really naff as you lose a lot of fidelity when locomoting. If you think hip firing is unfeasible currently, it's very meta currently in CQC engagements. But in 3.24, there is some inertia introduced to stop people playing DDR Edison. Okay, I think I get what you're saying there. But that is true. Like in real life, hip firing is not really a feasible way to shoot people. So like, if you want, he said here, as an example, I don't like Call of Duty at all, but it has a very, very good degree of control customization. One of the things that you have to realize is that Star Citizen is trying to be its own game. So if you're wondering why this feels different when you're doing FPS, it's because they're trying to create their own version of FPS and not just copy Call of Duty, or any of those other games, those other first-person shooters. Now, that doesn't mean they're not taking anything from them. It just means that they do want there to be a unique feel here. But as always, make sure you are constantly, hammering them with these questions so that they can, explain why things are different. So it says regarding sensitivities, we use a linear metric to determine your sensitivity based on zoom, so it shouldn't be inconsistent. Plan is to get zoom sensitivity controls per level so you can adjust to your liking, like in a lot of competitive games. So if you don't like the linear curve setup, you can have it as specific and niche as you like. So then there was another question, as long as we're on the topic of crosshairs, any plans around the hit markers? I like them for stuff like Star Marine, but in PU it kind of feels too gamey and cheap, and feels like it will be an issue when confirming hits and kills that I am not supposed to know about. Assuming there isn't a lore reason that the enemy suit is letting me know if the target is down. Just saying that combat would probably feel a bit more real if I didn't know whether I delivered a killing shot or not. So are we liking it as is or not liking it? So with hit markers, it currently only tied to combat visors. They're the most optimal for combat for certain playstyles, but we'll have larger trade-offs when more gear archetypes come online. But there's no reason not to use one now because the other gear types aren't here yet. But when more things come online, you'll have to make meaningful choices on the gear to take with trade-offs to suit your style. So for example, gear that gives you more information, such as hit markers, will not have the other powerful elements that the other gear will have, but he can't talk about it. But you can imagine, just as a really high-level concept example of a trade-off, the gear might have very high emissions, meaning you are really easily scanned. Obviously, you don't want it to be a crutch for combat, as we want to offer gear with meaningful choice and reward those who go for gear with less contemporary FPS feedback. But just the nature of development, with the combat helmets being the furthest along and being the only ones turned on. Then it says the kill indicator wouldn't be needed if we didn't have those awful long super death animations anywhere, when we can see those removed. In the process of animation, still want to keep them, but they've always been intended as a super rare chance to trigger, but that hasn't been the case. Should be in the 1% or so. And then all the way down here, as the guy who made the video about the sensitivity being wrong, it is perfect now. I think the reason people believe the ADS sensitivity is still incorrect is because the FOV changes in sight dependent on your FOV in the game, but as far as sensitivity scaling relative to FV, it is perfect and no longer an issue. That's the video I sent to the programmer who fixed it, funnily enough. Was on the Jira and everything. Cheers for that. And last one, I think, yep, this is the last one. As someone who plays, I would also like to know if the dynamics of the animations will change. I don't know what it's called correctly. That is, the characters move too quickly and twitch relative to your aim. How can I say? It's like I'm playing Quake and not a simulator. Perhaps that happens because the time to kill is too high and people have too much time to do. UPD characters lack anyway, UPD characters lack momentum. This says Zach Priest from CIG said the twitchiness of the character, it's mainly due to two things: the lack of inertia, hipfire not being punishing enough. Soon, some inertia has been introduced in 3.24 that should solve this issue without making the movement feel sluggish, keeping an eye on it to make sure it stops the tap strafing. Want to see how much that solves before touching the hipfire. People are hipfiring because it makes their movement speed higher and the overall hip firing penalty isn't high enough, comboed with no hip fire movement penalty as well. So there's a huge FPS explainer that kind of happened here, just because, people ask questions on, Spectrum. So go on there, go on the forum, ask your questions. You could even reach out to specific devs, as this person did, and see if you get your answers. So that's pretty much it for Star Citizen Nightly. I normally don't read all of that stuff, but I think that one, it just had so much engagement from the dev that I just was like, let me just go in and read that whole thing, because it's a lot. It's a lot if you don't normally go onto the forums and try to get your information from there directly. So anyway, that's it for this one. I will see you in the next one. Thanks for spending your time with us. Peace.